This episode was so much fun. It was with some friends of mine, Antonio and Allison. Now, most people that know Antonio and Allison would possibly recognize them for being famous cello players that travel literally around the world playing for some of the biggest worship leaders in the world. But for those of us that get to know them personally, we know them as just some of the sweetest people you'd ever want to know, with so much purpose in their life to make the world a better place, to expose people to the truth about money, just about their life and the value of being connected to a community and to themselves and to God. And that's what I just love about them. Antonio and I have so much fun every time we hang out, and I just think you're going to get so much out of this episode. We talk about everything from faith, finances, some of their strategies with buying real estate early on in their career. Allison just got her doctorate in finance and how that's helping her to teach people some of the simplest fundamentals of managing money. So make sure you download, subscribe, and like this episode. That's going to help me get this podcast out. It's also going to help me get incredible guests like Antonio and Allison. Antonio and Allison, we're finally here. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, we're so excited to be here.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Well, we were just talking about podcasting, and I was telling someone who is doing a podcast right now, I think it's going to do really well. I was like, man, if you don't get any listeners but 14 8-year-olds in the Philippines, you're going to grow so much as a communicator.
Right.
It's going to make you really uncomfortable, and there's so many ancillary benefits that comes from doing this kind of stuff.
Yes,
true.
Yes.
So
You do have a great podcasting voice, though.
do I?
Yes.
It's just that low end there, man. It's like
Yep.
The low end.
beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wasn't making it up.
It's good.
Ahab sounds pretty good too.
I have had a good voice, so yeah.
I honestly think it's the cigars.
Is that, yeah, dude? Come
Probably.
on, man.
Yep. Just goes the next octave.
It makes everything better, man. I tell you what.
It really does, man.
It does,
True.
especially after you have one, and it's like, oh man, I feel like I could just right now
Yep.
just talk about
Mighty
anything.
voice.
Well, we're gonna get the ventilation system put in next week. So
Oh, come on.
All right, man.
that's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a dream, but
At another location, right?
That's
another
so
location, another time.
Another
That's
business
so
venture.
funny.
Well, the people that have been listening and watching our stuff, they're from all over, and usually it's like 25 to 45, 50 middle class, upper middle class people, and a lot of them would probably recognize you guys as the musicians. But I wanted to talk to you guys because I know that you guys also have a whole different side to your life that's allowed you guys to kind of create your own path. And so I would love to hear a little bit about the story about the music side. And then when you guys started thinking about real estate, which has obviously been a long journey now. I mean,
Right.
you just got your doctorate and finance,
Yep.
so I mean, this is like, you guys know a lot about money and real estate, and a lot of people that see you, they probably don't know that. And so
Right. Well,
Would
thanks
love to hear
man.
that.
It's a pleasure to be here with
thank you.
such an amazing blessing to the city.
Oh,
There's
thank
so
you, man.
many in our community.
And
when
you've
it
been
comes
part of
to-
our journey for years now, which is really fun.
I feel like I've been the blessed one, but I appreciate you saying that, man.
No,
We feel
you
blessed by you.
really have made a big difference into so many people's lives in the whole community, and a lot of our friends, even in the music space, that they've had a chance to work with you in their financial needs in the real estate, buying houses and everything. And it's like they all just speak so highly.
Yep.
And so thank you for the steadfastness over the years, to excellence and quality, and really, putting the people first, because you know how it goes in the business world. It's so easy to quantify the value of a person by how much money, because it's the easiest thing, right? Well, how much money do you have?
Yeah.
Well, that's your value. That's your worth, your net worth, right? Which in a way it is, I'm not saying that's wrong, but it is something you do great. You put so much value on the person,
Relationship.
the relationship.
Mhm.
And I've noticed that over the years, it's always been really comfortable and easy to talk to you about pretty much anything, about money, about just the needs of things. And it believe it or not, I mean, that's not as common, you know,
No, it's
in
not.
in the financial space, because again, it's so easy to judge a book by the cover, so to
Yeah,
speak, or
yeah.
or judge a person by the content of their bank account instead of the content of their character, and even their potential.
Exactly.
And I've seen that over the years, you know, just the way that you draw the gold, literally the value and the worth out of people that might not even believe it yet, you know, on their own selves, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wanted to mention that because
Thank
I
you.
think it's true, and if it's true, it matters.
Yes.
Yep.
And should be said.
I'll pay you later.
Exactly. Just texting before. You're going to say that thing, right?
Hey, put that plug in there.
Thank you. I'm serious.
No. I really mean that, and I know we really appreciate that, and it's meant a lot to us over you know, the time that we've gotten to do business with you and build a relationship. To really notice that, we always went, man, I really feel so valued by every interaction. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Love that.
Well, you know, and it's just been the last few years that we've actually like become friends.
Right.
I mean, I always liked you guys. I like everybody, right? But we all, our worlds kind of have to kind of intersect,
Right.
and finally they did.
Yeah.
And so that's been a ton of fun.
Yeah.
We've got such an incredible group of guys around, and it's been
Makes me a little jealous. I mean,
Hey,
he comes
you're not
home with,
alone.
I mean, he's very discreet about what he shares, because sometimes there's only things that are shared around certain tables, but you know, he does a great job. Makes me a little like, I have a good group, but what is it? That's amazing. Like, I need to form my own cigar group or something.
Y'all need to get your own nail group or something.
I know. Literally, we were talking with a friend the other day. We're like, what do girls do? Like, do we, I don't know, round mimosas? Like, what does this look like for ladies? You know?
You're not alone, Allison. I many wives have been saying and thinking the same thing.
Yeah. It's beautiful to me, though. I love the conversations. It's just the rich communion that happens that I get to watch and benefit from. Literally, like, I feel it impacts your life. It impacts, you know, my friends' husbands' lives.
Makes me a better man.
Exactly.
It does.
It does. Just needing to have something that's fun.
It does, man. And it's so, it truly is, the word gets thrown around a lot, but it truly is community.
Right.
But it's something that's different because it's so authentic. You know, we could be talking about a cigar and something, and just like being boys, just being goofballs. Yeah. And then like a second later, like we could be praying for something wholeheartedly.
That's true.
Going after healing or breakthrough for one of our friends.
That's true.
And that is just so incredible to see all those worlds being in the same place. You know?
And keeping things honest, keeping things real. Yeah, that's true.
But each one in the group, I know, values time. Like, your time means something. And so I do see, you know, it's like, I guess it transpires maybe per decade, but sometimes like, let's go watch a movie. It's like, that's not the season of life that we're all into. Let's just get a bunch of friends to spend 4 hours doing something. It's like, no, actually, you're very purposeful with your time, and it's something you're growing and enriching in the midst of that, you know, and that to me stands out about your guys' group. So fun to watch. And I support it.
Like the men sacrifice time to be a part of it.
Exactly.
Yes.
True.
Yes.
It means because you guys travel all over the world, and you guys have a lot going on. And then, that's true for a lot of
every
guys
guy in the group.
Yeah.
It's not just like you have all this time to, let's go watch movies together. Let's go do, you know, some things that might normally bring people together.
Yeah.
You actually sacrifice time that means something to you and spend it together. So
I think the important thing, what I've learned from watching this and other groups like it is, it's really cool when you get a bunch of men or women, or men and women together who are just going after excellence and they just want to be better and grow and do the right thing and be close to God and change the world. And, you know, like, everyone borrows from each other's strengths.
Yes.
And when you're secure in who you are, but you feel very insecure in another area, and you have a community and there's people that are strong in the areas you're weak, it's really, it paints that picture to me of the body of Christ, and and it helps me see it in a way I couldn't see it before.
We are not meant to do these alone.
No.
We oh gosh, and I think somebody said, if you can accomplish your dream alone, your dream is too small.
Yeah.
And because it's true, like the reality is like, you know, the distance between where we end and where our dream begins, some people call that the God gap, but God uses people to fill that gap. And it's like the bigger the dream, the more people you actually need to fill that gap with you, so that you can run the race, successfully and with longevity and I tell you what, it's not easy to be alone and to do things by yourself. I would say it's impossible really to do anything significant, to do anything. That's why I love, man, all the stuff you're doing about, with this thing about bringing people together, and allowing people to get help and understand like that you're not alone in the journey towards goals. That's massive. And people like that community, man, I tell you what, there's so much like, here's what I find that there's so much shame around the whole topic of finance,
True.
that often people don't look for help because they're potentially feeling insecure, is what you were saying, right? And these areas of insecurity, it's easy to sort of just insulate, and then and be facing this problems that you don't know how to fix, and
often get worse because you're not actually addressing them or getting
was it Einstein that said, or whoever it was, that said you cannot fix a problem by staying in the same level of thinking. No, it was not Einstein.
Say the quote.
Okay.
Whoever it
I'll
was.
say the quote and y'all tell me who said
Someone
it.
smart.
Somebody smart.
Anonymous.
You cannot solve a problem but by staying in the same level of thinking you were in when you got yourself into the problem.
Yep.
But it's the easiest thing. The easiest thing is to I get myself into a problem, and then is to remain there or even lower my level of thinking because I'm afraid. But that's kind of what fear does, isn't it? And all of a sudden you become afraid or insecure, whatever. And the level of boldness, maybe the level of courage, the level of thinking and
risk
that you were before
curiosity, you have no
might even decrease, and all of a sudden you get yourself stuck into this, really stuck into the I love community, companionship. Really, I always tell Allison, babe, at any point, we need to always have people around us that are farther down the road than we are. Like isn't it the average? Somebody said, I forget where I read this, but it's like you end up making the average amount of money that the 10 people closest to you make. So meaning, if you got divide, let's say the 10 people closest to you, and you divide the amount of money they make, you're going to end up making the average of all that, approximately. I mean, and it's like, you think about it, it's like, well, what's the trick? Well, I got to get myself around people
that don't think like I
don't think like I do, that make me uncomfortable. That maybe that I look at them and I go like, man, I wish I was where they are at. And we talk about this all the time because it's like, it's not easy.
No, I mean, you guys have experienced that being musicians. I mean, I'm sure there was time where, well, for everyone in every field, where you're in a room where you feel like I don't belong here. And and if you stick with it long enough, you start realizing I always want to feel that.
Oh man, that's good.
I always want to be in a room where I'm insecure, because that is where I'm going to grow the most.
That's
I
so
love
good.
That. I love that.
Gives you the edge, actually.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, but here's the thing. I mean, we don't do it because we're afraid. And I think that man, I like to know your thoughts about fear, man, because it's like you have a fear, what sort of, for me, it's such a massive thing, what that I often see that it's sort of the first gate that somebody has to go through in order to find breakthrough, right? And not just in finance, but pretty much in everything,
Yeah, well, fear is an emotion, and the emotion of fear is not bad. But if it keeps you up in the middle of the night worrying about money, and you have food in the fridge and your bills are paid, that's where it's become a problem, right? So it's like, how do we keep fear as an emotion? And I've learned a lot about it because my wife and I have been going through the connection codes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we love them, yeah.
So we were talking to Dr. Hill one time about our daughter. And my wife was talking about, like, fear is not of God. And he's like, and he listened. He's very good.
Yeah.
And
Do the oohs,
he's
the
like, where did
awesome?
you get fear is not of God? In the nicest way.
Yeah.
And she said, well,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
we're not supposed to. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
She's like, well, why? And he
Yeah.
said, well, for one, it's not true. For two, it's not biblical. And for three, it's not helping your daughter.
Yeah.
I looked at him like,
That's right.
Wow.
like she's sitting right there.
I know.
And he went on to say, you know, when we feel fear, if we're standing on the edge of a cliff, or you know, if we're about to get into a car accident, like our body reacts in a way that gives us adrenaline, so we can make super fast decisions.
Totally. Yes.
You know,
that's right.
but where it becomes a problem is if it floods our limbic system.
Yes.
We're not able to think creatively, which is what you were saying.
Yeah,
we lose our ability to access our mental faculties, right? Well, the problem with stress and anxiety, it's a fancy word for fear, and it's like 24/7 for people because they're constantly feeding it. They haven't found a way to, you know, to find peace.
Right.
And so the answer to solving fear for some people gets them even into more trouble because they think more money, or they think a bigger house, or they think this, that, or the other thing is going to solve their fear. And finally, if people can't get rid of it, they turn to substances to try to medicate it,
Yeah.
which all that does is dull it and numb it, you know? So fear is a massive problem. And, you know, but it can be a motivator. You know, for me, most of my life growing up, fear was a motivator.
Yeah.
It was like my friend. It drove me to just make things happen, and it was. But it's not the best motivator. I would hear people say, "Oh, I liked being motivated by love." I was like, "Oh, that sounds really nice." I don't. I would like to learn something about that someday.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know. Is that what you were asking?
That's powerful.
Because that's like, you know, it's an indicator, right?
Yeah, it is. Like, it's like a text message from your body.
That's right.
There's something going on.
That's right. And it's not supposed to block you from breakthrough,
right?
But as an indicator, it's almost like a gate, right? You gotta walk through it, as opposed to move away from it. Right?
Totally.
And I think that's precisely what you know, we talk about often, you know, because we would sit there and all the time be like, hey, how are you feeling? You know, and, well, I think I'm feeling fear. All right. That's great. Well, now that we've identified this, let's dig in there.
Yeah.
Let's have that conversation. Let's think about it. Let's sort of take a step back and identify where this is pointing.
Yep.
What's the indicator? Where, you know, it's like a sign.
Yeah.
You go through the road and you're gonna find all these signs, and it's like, instead of just being like, oh my gosh, there's a sign right there, let's move away from this sign. Let's think about it for a second. Where does it pointing, right? Because
it can actually become your cap also. It's almost like my level of comfortability will become my cap. If I won't actually face it and move past it, I'm literally saying this is where I level off.
Yeah.
And so fear also can be an invitation if we're actually willing to look at it and say, I'm not going to level off here, because fear sometimes does. It's almost like that comfort level or the risk level. It's like that indicator of where I'm okay. I feel like I'm in control of this.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh, I'm out of control. All these things could potentially happen. I think different personalities they're more on the spectrum of feeling fear and seeing the problems, and more, you know, others are not as much.
Yep.
But it can be that place where like, no, I'm not going to face this. And so I think that is where we literally we could stop there in life.
Yeah.
Instead of, I mean, it's not like you actually faced your fear. It actually became a motivator to move past it. You didn't cap off there, which is really stunning.
Well, yeah, and it's because I hang around a lot of people that have modeled that for me, and I see the value of it.
Yes,
and then I see the downside to staying comfortable.
Yeah,
you know, so it's like if I didn't have those people, I'm not sure I'd be where I'm at today.
Yeah.
That's such a great topic. When it comes to like the things we talk about a lot in my world, money. I would also say that fear is one of the things that keeps people from progressing. And a lot of times when we sit down and we actually talk about the facts, which I think is processing the fear, and they can actually see like, whoa, there's not a whole lot to be afraid of here. Like the risk feels this big, but once we actually go through it, it's actually like this big.
Right.
And now actually the fear of not doing this seems a lot bigger.
Yeah.
You know, so like the processing of fears, whether it's in money or anything else, is how we alleviate it.
That's so good.
But at the same time, I often think about what's the worst case scenario.
Oh, me too.
What's the worst thing that
It
could
was like,
happen right now?
what's the worst thing that could happen?
Worst,
if I take this-
worst case scenario, the hell out of everything, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's also often actually pretty good. It's actually okay. You're like, oh, I'd be fine. That's not too bad of an outcome.
Yeah.
But for real though, it's like when it comes to like any sort of, this is what we find, any sort of increase is going to have a risk associated with it.
Mhm.
Generally, if it's because everything that's worth something is going to cost something, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
even if it's free, it still costs something,
Right.
but it's maybe it doesn't cost something to you, but it still has it still costs something, right? And so whenever it's about, anytime you think about adding worth, adding value to anything, increasing dream, whatever that is, it's like there's going to be a cost, and that cost is going to require taking some risk.
Yep.
And so so whenever I do that calculation in my head, the first thing to take in risk is like, stress, tension, right? Oh my gosh, like what if this fails, right? What is this, what if it doesn't go the best case scenario, right? What if it doesn't succeed? What if it fails? But then you start thinking, going down that route, and it's like, especially if you've had any sort of experience of taking risk in the past and you didn't. And then you go in the future and it's like, I should have bought Bitcoin when it was $100,
Yeah. Oh man.
You know what I'm talking about? It's like,
Oh yeah.
and the worst case scenario of, in that example, for, right now, it's like, man, like, it was not as big as I thought it would be at the time. You know what I'm saying?
No. Yeah. When what you're really saying is you're also asking, what is the risk if I don't do this?
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And oftentimes for me, like that's a big motivator because, and it's not even necessarily about money. Sometimes it's like, how will I feel about myself?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
How will this affect others? How will this affect my family?
Yeah.
And that's a motive. That is a healthy fear.
Yes.
For me.
Yeah. How would my future look different?
Yeah.
Reminds me too, I'm currently teaching a college course on personal finance. And it's interesting because in engaging with my students as well as in building the course, you see that even personal finance, that topic hasn't been around for centuries. Like even the progression of how mortgages got started on houses, the whole thing. It's really interesting to realize that sometimes people just don't have the education, not as in like a degree on it, but as in like no one actually taught them basic things about finance. And so it can feel very scary. And so part of it is in facing it is actually just getting knowledge, which was what I love about your podcast, because it feels like it breaks down topics that can be scary to people. And it's like, no, this is actually just informing them and giving them education.
Wow,
and I can see the fear that my students are facing in like, no, I don't create a monthly budget, like just very basic things because they've been scared of it. They've not seen it modeled, whatever it is, the triggers that come from it. And so to me, even the education piece of, hey, this is actually fun. All humans are on this journey together. You're not alone in this. Some are a lot further, but let that spur you on, glean from them, learn from them.
That means it's possible.
It means it's possible. Exactly.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's so possible.
Right.
Yeah. It's so possible. And and I'm glad that that's what you see me doing because that's what I tried to do. Honestly, I didn't want to just when I started hanging out with the Brave Co guys and like learning this whole emotional health and that changed my life, and then it made a lot of sense to me because I grew up around so many poor people, and then now I know so many rich people, and I see the messes people create on both sides, and I realize, wealth without emotional health is like only half of the thing. Like
so good.
Like and I realized how emotional this stuff was for people, and then I also realized that people have so many misconceptions and excuses for why they are where they are, and they need to hear more people that started out in the dirt.
Yes.
And because those stories are going to give them inspiration to realize, bare minimum is going to take their excuses away.
Yes. No, exactly.
I love that. Wealth without health. It rhymes on everything, Wealth without emotional health.
I'm kind of like Dr. Seuss.
Heck yeah, dude.
Exactly. 100%. You're like, it just rolls off my tongue.
I love that.
Oh my gosh. So what are you, Allison, what are you finding? Like, what are you finding with these kids? I mean, they're young adults trying to figure out, like, what are some of the things that you're hearing them say? Are there limiting factors or misconceptions or their points of tension?
Yeah. Well, to address that, but kind of come up from a side
Sure.
angle. I think we're in an interesting time in history where, you know, people used to start families, sometimes even right out of high school. The trajectory was seems simpler if I look back, but maybe I'm sure it didn't seem in the time. But, you know, you go to school, get your education, you get married, you buy a house, you have a family. It was a very kind of concrete. And I'm seeing this generation, you know, into people's 30s being like, I'm still renting. Like, I don't know when I should buy. It's a lot of, they're feeling behind in certain aspects. Some of it's from their choice, and some of it, you know, I've heard some friends even like, well, I don't know how to meet someone. Just some of the like, I would have met him in high school and now I'm 30 and I don't know how to meet someone. It's just some of the normal kind of trajectory of people's lives that would have pointed certain directions. Just starting out, their trajectory has changed. Then there's a people that's not at all, like, you know, but sometimes I'm seeing this average of people.
Yeah.
And so that is affecting, you know, they're not actually coming with knowledge sometimes to this financial era because they're still renting. Some people are actually even still living in their parents' home. Like it's a whole different,
a lot of people. Yeah.
And so they're maybe saving or spending, you know, all of that just looks very different. So I'm seeing that trend within students. That a lot of them are older, still single, and not wanting to be there. They want to be at a different point in their life, but their finances don't look like they want. And to your point, there's a lot of shame around it. It's funny, even in, you know, having it, when I was going into my master's in business and into my doctorate, people are like, man, you must be really good at math. And there is an element of that. But I think I realized there's a misconception even when we come to finance that you have to be really good at math and you have to be really good at all these different things. Instead of, no, there's actually like,
I'm sure there's an app for it.
There's an app for it. There's lots of things.
GPT.
Exactly. That you don't have to be really good at certain things to actually approach it. And so that's why I actually encounter some with my students is shame, feeling like I don't have the knowledge, I don't have what it needs, so I haven't talked with anybody, I haven't even seen what's out there. I'm just going to try to in my life and stumble through. And so I get really excited to actually engage with them.
That's beautiful.
On that because I'm like, you're not alone in this. Like, let's talk about this. Let's look at your budget. It doesn't have to be scary that every month your expenses are more than your income. Let's talk about that. Let's make a plan so that doesn't happen. And let's talk about how we can grow your income, you know, just really basic things. So I get excited and passionate about it. And I think that's why I love seeing the content that you're putting out is it's addressing some of these very things on even new policies. I think I saw a video recently you put out about some changes in mortgages or different things that are coming out and you actually break it down what that means for people. And that's invaluable because, I mean, it's not, you can go dig, you can go Google and figure out some of this stuff, but it's not broken down where people can understand who are in that state of, I really want to build, I want to do something, but I'm 30, I don't know how. You know?
Or in a way it sometimes doesn't feel accessible, and we're in a generation that often moves more about what it feels like
my fingertips
than what it thinks like, if you will. And so it's easier to make decisions based of how I feel. So I think having somebody like you like breaking down some of these things, you know, because you can find this information anywhere, you know, but having somebody, I like this person, I feel like I can trust them, and I feel like what they're saying is true. That's gonna be there's gonna be more breakthrough there, if you will, for this person, and for them to just kind of go look at
exactly,
you know, especially for the younger kind of crowd, you know.
Now I'm speaking more to the younger crowd because that's kind of the ones that I'm working with. But
that's amazing.
Well, that's you know, right now that's the majority of homebuyers too is millennials.
Is that right?
Yeah, I've been looking at it, tracking it nationwide. I mean, the seniors and the baby boomers, they all bought. Their houses are either paid off or their mortgage is so low and their rate's so low, they're not buying another house, right? So right now it's a lot of millennials and Gen Zers are right behind them and they're all on content.
Yes.
So that, you know, they may not go on Housing Wire to read about mortgage. So it's kind of an interesting world that way. And, you know, this is one of the things I had to learn when I started doing this was taking these complicated things to a fourth grade level,
Yeah, come on.
Yes.
which sounds easy because I usually think like a fourth grader, but
No,
it's
I know what
actually
you're
not
saying.
very hard to communicate like
Yeah.
that.
It's true.
Or
That's
very
true.
easy, I should say.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, no,
difficult.
Yes, it really is.
It's difficult.
But
I mean-
that's where it's accessible to most people.
Right.
Like if say if you're scrolling through Instagram on
Yeah.
a quick break or whatever, you
Uh-huh.
don't want to have to elevate to like
Yeah.
a degree level, some kind of bachelor's,
Yeah.
master, whatever.
Too much.
You want that quick input that
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that makes sense, and you get breakthrough in the moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it honestly is
Good.
where I think a lot of us live in the moment when you're just really quickly taking in content versus taking time to break it down.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing. You have such a window in people's lives if they open up to you
Yeah.
and their finances,
Mhm.
because that is a big one. And I think that these young people, they the reason why people don't have a plan, you said it, is a lack of education. And it all starts with just meeting the right people
Mhm.
and having people that can inspire them and
Yeah.
encourage them
Yes.
and just say, hey, I've been there too. I know hundreds of people who have been there.
Mm.
Let me tell you some stories. You got this. It's not a big deal. There's some very simple steps.
Yeah.
No one ended up being a millionaire overnight, and no one was born with those skills. They learned them.
Yes.
And the thing that,
Yeah.
going back to your comment about math, how people would say that they said that about me too. Oh, hey, you do mortgages. Oh, you must love math. It's like, no, I actually hated math.
I know.
And now I don't say that when I'm dealing with the client because
No, I understand. Yeah.
But-
Yeah, I hear you.
But what you did, Allison, is you became very good at being a student.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's
Good.
what people need to do if they want to
Yes.
change the things in their
So
life.
good.
so
You
good.
have to be good at becoming a student.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on.
That should be a plaque.
You have
That's
to be
another-
someone that wants to
Yeah.
learn.
Yes. It's
Because
true.
you recognize there's things you don't know. And the only thing between you and those things you
Yes.
want is information and connection.
Right.
It's so
right,
true.
right.
So working
Wow.
through the inadequacies of I should know, or what you feel disqualifies you from being there, and be like, no, I'm going to learn. I don't care. I mean, I think that's a power, like we've been talking about, of having people who have been where you're at, but pushed through and now are somewhere else that you want to go, is seeing like, well, they pushed through all of the kind of the emotional side. Like there's actually emotional side of everything,
Yeah.
just like we've touched on, that you have to push through
Yeah.
in the learning, because it can make you feel inadequate, to be like, nope, I don't know it. And that's awesome. That's an invitation. This is actually exciting. So I'm going to put on my bootstraps and have courage to actually move forward into that next, the invitation that is here.
There's the first stage of learning. It's called unconscious incompetence. And this is basically you don't know
That you don't know.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then from there you move to conscious incompetence. You know that you don't know.
Uh-huh.
The third stage of learning is conscious competence. You know that you know. And the fourth stage, which is the holy grail, if you will, this is where we all want to be, is I don't know that I know, right? It's just second nature.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so the first step, though, unconscious incompetence, it's probably it's probably the hardest one to take. And the one that might seem the most humiliating
Yeah.
is I don't know that I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes we think we know.
And
That's hard.
That's worse.
That's
Yeah.
right. And in a world
Don't know.
in which we live in which to say I don't know,
Yeah.
it almost feels stupid to say it, right? But to acknowledge, actually, I don't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would like to learn it.
Yeah.
See that step right there.
Yeah.
I don't know this, and I would like to learn it.
Yeah.
That is a powerful. That is a powerful choice. It's a powerful statement that literally can take you all the way to the top, right? But if you do not go through that first stage, you will not get to I don't know that I know, or I know that I don't know, and then I know that I know, kind of thing. The four stages.
Yeah. Well, and what we're really talking about here is humility and pride, right?
Bingo. That's
really
wow.
pride is like the chief block to
Yes.
everything.
Yep.
And one of the things I feel that has unlocked hope and for people to maybe be conscious that they don't know that they don't know and that they actually want to know is I like to tell people my testimony.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, I think that's so powerful for all of us, right?
Oh, it so
You
is.
tell them like,
Yes.
here's where I was,
Yeah.
here's where this conflict happened, and where I was at a really low, and I you know, for me, I got a radical encounter with Jesus.
Wow, come on.
And I was delivered from drugs and alcohol, and all my friends had died before I was 22 from drugs and alcohol, and
Wow.
I was the least likely to survive till 30. And you know, I just started volunteering and telling the truth and hanging around with guys that were following Jesus and doing whatever they told me to do.
Wow.
I was just like, hey man, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I just don't want to go back to that life. And
Yeah.
it's just like from that simple place. So that was like really my gift. And what I see for a lot of people in life is if they ever have a rock bottom experience, it makes the whole, I don't know that I don't know a little easier.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You know, and you guys have seen people like that, you know,
Yeah.
people that have these, they hit bottom at some point in their life, and it's like they had kind of this 180 experience, and which isn't typical for everybody, and it's not required. I don't recommend it.
Right. Plan to have a rock bottom time in your life, maybe not, but
bad. But anyways, well, we kind of went unconventional on this, but this has been a great conversation, guys, and we're doing a little backwards, but you know, you guys, the reason I had you in is because you guys are investors, you have properties, you even have a property in Spain.
Yes, we bought a cave house in Spain. Can you believe that?
I can, man. I thought about you last night because my kids and I and my wife have been watching this Outdoor Boys on YouTube.
Yes.
It's this guy that like camps in like these remote places, and he was in Spain last night on some river catching 100-pound catfish.
no way.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's Spain.
Let's
I
go.
was like, I was thinking
That's
about you. It was very,
amazing.
but yeah, but you guys are also traveling musicians, and you've got a lot of other ideas. And I know you guys are going to blow up. We just talked about that recently. I'm so excited, and but most importantly, what I love about you guys is your heart is to make the world a better place, and to everything that you do, you want to have purpose. And that's just, man, I love being around people like that.
Yes.
Because because you can do both.
It's true.
You can do good by doing good.
Yep.
Man, that's so
It's
good.
so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. That actually, it's crazy because if we think about that very thing, it's like, what's the other option?
It's not good, bro.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. So it's like, if you do a risk analysis of, you know, what do I want my life to be? And I really want to make the world a better place.
I already did the research and
myself
development in a former life.
Yeah, exactly. You
Going
can
back
tell
to your
us how-
testimony, it's
R&D is
like,
done.
listen,
I know.
I know how that turns out.
that's amazing. Thank you for saying that, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you guys being here. I know you guys are busy flying all over the place, and truly, I'm so grateful you guys did this. This was like one of the most fun conversations I've had, and I know people are going to get a ton out of this. So thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
Thank you
It's
for having us.
a good pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.